Notice Jane's not answering when I ask left or right. She just smiled. So off camera, I just asked Peter if he was a police officer. He was a little hesitant when he said he was. And I told him I dabbled in that, you know, went to school for it. He didn't say much. I asked him if he knew about law enforcement against prohibition, and he just smirked. And then I said, familiar with them? He said yes. He was. I see your neighbor needs saving.
Why are you following her around for?
Well, we're following in front of her to save people from getting tickets. Would you like our card or Robin Hooding Keene?
No, I don't want your fucking card. Why are you following her?
Well, that's very mature.
Right.
Two minutes left. Give them some more time. Our friends are coming. Keep ahead of our friends. 9 minutes left to make do. do your 20 years in New Hampshire?
20? I've been here a lot longer than 20.
No, did you do your 20 for law enforcement in New Hampshire? Yeah, isn't that a sweet retirement system?
I don't know if I call it sweet. It's hard-earned.
20 years? I mean, you could become a cop at 22, 20, 17.
You have to be 50 to retire.
Oh, you have to be 50.
No, you do, yes.
I did not know that. Yeah, when I was going to NHTI, that was back in 06 to 08.
It was 45 back then.
Yep, yeah, that was why I thought that. They made it just a little bit more difficult. Yeah, I got a degree in criminology from USF. I was on vacation / work just now, going back down there. I mean, it wasn't really work as much as it was, you know, creative labor. Things that I like to do that you don't really get paid for, but you do them because you think they're good, like this. But they did cover my plane trip down there, the conference itself, because I was presenting. And guess what I was presenting on? Police accountability.
What kind of conference is that?
It's called All Power to the Imagination. It's for gathering together different people of different radical political ideologies. There were some people that were like socialists and communists, some people that were anarchists, some people that were voluntarists. It was like a mix of all sorts of different people. You follow Occupy Wall Street at all? It's interesting how that modern movement has come to sort of shape. Have you find her out here? I find Occupy very interesting because it's come to sort of shape modern political movements that are non-political. Political movements that are non-political. You know what I mean? Protests, not formal, not running for office. Alright. So here to follow me or go with Jane. I'm going to check around the back here.
Why you come down here? Why did you say follow you down here?
Oh, sometimes they exit through this door. Duh.
How do you know they don't exit through the front door?
Sometimes they do that too. A marvel of modern physics that if you're in a building, there could be multiple entrances and exits, and one person can only have eyes on so many. It's pretty interesting stuff. I mean, I hate to be too much of a marketer for one product, but I'm telling you, I think when you go home tonight, you're going to want to check this out on Amazon, the XGrip.
On what is it on?
It's called the XGrip. See, there's like the logo on the side there. Yeah, the handle. It's like a stabilizer. Like, this is so easy to control and use. And like you can add little weights on the bottom. You can put a tripod down here for stabilization. It's great. And if you'll notice, we're in a parking lot that's a security notice, under surveillance. I always like seeing those signs because it's like, oh, videography should be welcome here, you would think, you know.
What is your shirt? It says chalk the police. What does that mean?
Yeah, chalk the police. You probably haven't heard about the Chalking 8 incident in Manchester about 2 years ago in June. So myself and 7 other people were arrested at a police accountability demonstration. It was right after the Manchester police had been exonerated in the beating of Chris Miklovich. Do you remember that case?
I do remember something about it.
Yeah, you might remember the mugshot of the guy with like his face fractured in.
It was on
yeah.
on freekeene.com.
Yeah, and like a lot of different newspaper union leader ran stories about it. So the police had just been exonerated by the Attorney General's office for that. And then also the week prior, James Breton, I believe was the man's name, that was him and his daughter were holed up in an apartment. He was refusing to come out. And I realized that the case was spun as though like he was a danger to his daughter possibly. But I think just as almost bad an outcome as like more people getting hurt was they stormed into his apartment, killed him in front of his daughter. And so those two things that just happened in Manchester.
The one he shot at the police?
What?
Is that the one he shot at the police vehicle, the armored vehicle, the second story?
I don't remember hearing that he shot at it. I mean, he might have, but I really don't remember that part of the story. This was 2 years ago.
That's an important part of the story to remember.
That would be, if that's the case. I'll definitely look that up. Yeah, I do remember that they were driving around the Bearcat for that, though. So yeah, it was right after that Chalking Aid incident. Was a bunch of us were meeting at the Manchester Police Station to have a police accountability demonstration. We had signs and banners and chalk. And we began chalking, like me, myself, other people, began chalking the sidewalks. Some people were chalking that retaining wall there, which I'd say is totally legit to chalk because it rains right off in that area. What happened was about after an hour of being there, somebody went inside, or no, a few of us were inside, and somebody began chalking the wall under the overhang and said, "How many have been killed by Manch PD?" And when they saw that, they instantly arrested the two people that were chalking the wall. So that happens. A lot of people are recording. Cell phones, cameras are getting pulled out. And then as those people are getting arrested and brought inside, the sergeant in that instance, his name is John Patty, said, "Anybody who had a camera, take it away, it's evidence." And they began confiscating people's cameras, which I considered a major act of aggression. That like was giving me flashbacks. I don't know if you've seen any documentaries about countries where like cameras are, they like crack down on them during protests, but there's a really good one, Burma VJ, stands for video journalist. And it's a documentary about in Burma when they cracked down on protests, they would steal people's cameras and just load people in vans. And the footage had to get smuggled out of the country and then uploaded elsewhere because it was like, you know, totally against the law to have that footage. And so that was going on in Manch. They were just taking people's cameras. I pocketed my camera when they started coming around taking them, and they weren't really searching people for them. They were just, if they saw them out, they were taking them. So then they arrested more. They came out and made a second wave of arrests of people that they thought were chalking earlier. And then people in the police station complaining about their cameras being taken started getting arrested. So by this point, there's like 4 people arrested. Outside, there's some people from Keene that were actually at that demonstration. They got arrested for not moving away from the chalk fast enough within seconds of being given orders. I filmed like a lot of those trials. And then the last 3 people that were arrested, myself, the founder of Cop Block, Pete Eyre, and a third person who was a Manchester native, or a Manchester resident who was living there or whatever recently. We got swept up when John Patty came outside and said, "They're not moving fast enough, get them." And they were claiming that we were in a crime scene. You're probably intimately familiar with the disorderly conduct statute if you were a police officer. Mm-hmm. The way you can find people guilty of a violation in that instance is if it says, if they were doing what was illegal and they complied with the order, and they complied with the orders to move, they can still be found guilty of a violation as opposed to a misdemeanor. So it really makes it a catch-all. Like police would have to agree in New Hampshire, you arrest somebody for disorderly conduct, they can get found guilty of a violation very easily. If you're in an area that's being considered a crime scene and they give you an order to leave, the first thing you can do is leave. They could arrest you as you're leaving and you can still be found guilty of a violation. But in my instance, there was somebody recording with a camera from behind us that they did not see, and they did not steal his camera. And he got footage of me and I think all the others, and I think they should have used this footage more at their trials, backing up like this as the police officer is coming towards us and saying, "Arrest them for not moving." And even though we were moving, even though the other police officers, those other people were standing there and knew that we were moving, and I could tell those police officers kind of knew that the arrests were BS, but they still followed the order from their superior. And that's something I find interesting about policing. It's like a very dangerous chain of obedience that exists on the streets of our communities. I mean, the military is something that's very detached from us here because it's all the stuff that the military does goes on overseas for the most part. And so we don't see that very scary chain of obedience when it comes to using weapons against people and things like that. But we do live in a time where there's an increasing militarization of police. And it's great that the parking enforcers are something that they're not exactly police, but they do wear a badge. They do a policing function every day. And it's something that can be monitored and sort of turned to as like the softer edge of all of that more, I'd say, radical and extreme stuff that's going on in today's society. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any comment on that as a former law enforcement officer. Like, because you have the comfort of now being retired that you can begin to form like more of your own opinions about what you did over the course of your career and like what you observed. Because
Pretty proud of what I did over the course of my career.
I'm glad to hear that. But I mean, to a large extent, there's a lot of like internal stuff going on where like because somebody is in a commanding rank, they're able to do things that I don't think they should be able to do. I think the Chalking 8 instance is a great example of that. And fortunately, I was able to defeat the charges in court, but none of us had lawyers. I personally invested all the time necessary to learn about the facts of that case and defeat those charges against an attorney who is getting paid probably more than you're getting paid right now to prosecute that case. And it was all about just putting the work in and seeing how to beat them at their own game. But it's still like a rigged game in the court system, I mean, to a large extent. If you don't understand the rules, it's like, I mean, any sort of system, I'd say the measure of a totalitarian society is the complicated nature of it and the complex nature of it, like the levels of bureaucracy. And if it takes so much to learn about what one has to do just to navigate the court system, so like the average Joe couldn't represent themselves in court, I'd say that's a very complicated and totalitarian system that's like, you know, gone a little overboard. But anyway, the enforcers have probably gotten away from us now. I don't know what time it is. It's been very nice talking with you, but I really should get back to work. And by work, I mean the labor I freely choose to engage in. It's 3:06, so let's see what's going on.
May I follow you this way?
Sure. You can follow me all day as long as up till 5 o'clock. That's when I'd say I go off duty and I would ask for privacy.
I think that's a very reasonable request.
Cool. Thank you.